President Barack Obama gave his third State of the Union address last night. Here's a mercifully brief look at a few highlights.
Tax reform should follow the Buffett rule. If you make more than $1 million a year, you should not pay less than 30% in taxes. You can call this class warfare all you want. But asking a billionaire to pay at least as much as his secretary in taxes? Most Americans would call that common sense. It's time to apply the same rules from top to bottom. No bailouts, no handouts, and no cop-outs. An America built to last insists on responsibility from everybody. We can either settle for a country where a shrinking number of people do really well, while a growing number of Americans barely get by. Or we can restore an economy where everyone gets a fair shot, and everyone does their fair share, and everyone plays by the same set of rules.
Now, was this merely a stump speech to kick off his re-election bid, or was it a substantive report on the current condition of the nation, jam-packed with creative and practical remedies for what ails us? I'm PJTV's Scott Ott, joined now by my colleagues Alexis Garcia and Stephen Green. Alexis, the president started and ended his speech with a military teamwork analogy, encouraging Republicans and Democrats to set aside their differences and focus on the mission for the good of the country. What did you hear in the speech that Republicans might like, or that demonstrates a willingness to meet them halfway?
Well, Scott, it's funny that he had to bookend his speech with Osama bin Laden because that's the only thing he's gotten done in office. But, you know, it was funny to hear the president actually say that he's for fracking, for offshore drilling all of a sudden, developing natural gas, lowering credit card rates, when, you know, in reality, you know, planet Earth here, he's actually enacted legislation and policies that have completely undermined everything that he said in that speech. But I think there was one line in there that I think we can all agree upon, and that is when he said, "You can call this class warfare all you want." Well, yes, Mr. President, yes, we will.
And we will continue to do so. Stephen Green, the speech was filled with a long laundry list of proposals, as State of the Unions often are, both new proposals and recycled ones. Did you hear anything refreshing that has a chance of passing during this election year?
Oh, you know, there were several refreshing parts. I thought it was interesting that he was calling for all of these tax loopholes to lure businesses back, to stop doing this, to encourage people to do that, all these new tax loopholes. And then in the second half of the speech, he called for an end to tax loopholes. I thought it was very refreshing to do that in the exact same speech. I also thought it was refreshing that he wants to continue pouring government money into bailing out broke green industries, and then refreshing at the end of the speech that he says there will be no more bailouts and that we're all going to play by the same rules. So it was a refreshing speech. Whatever you didn't like, he said the exact opposite of it just a little while later.
An enigma within a paradox. Article 2, Section 3 of the Constitution says that the president shall from time to time give to the Congress information of the State of the Union and recommend to their consideration such measures as he shall judge necessary and expedient. Alexis, how well did the president satisfy the constitutional requirement, and what, if anything, was missing?
Well, Scott, I think it depends on what planet that you're on. I mean, this is, again, it's like bizarre Obama. I mean, it was a great speech. It was a very strong speech for the president, but it did nothing to address the realities of the problems that this country is facing. I mean, he didn't even mention the $15 trillion debt that we're facing. I mean, no mention of that whatsoever. You know, he wants to run against this do-nothing Congress. He wants to paint the Republicans as obstructionists, but yet he didn't call on Senate Democrats to pass a budget, which they haven't done in over 1,000 days, which is one of their main obligations under the Constitution. I mean, I think it was just a cop-out that, you know, you keep hearing about this fair America, fairness for all. I think it's just a cop-out that his policies aren't working, because if they were, he'd be talking about growth. He would be talking about how to grow this country, not how we can all play by the same rules and share the wealth. So, I mean, as far as him addressing the actual issues that we're facing, I think he failed.
Alexis will be buying the president a desk plaque that says the cop-outs stop here. Steve, if you were giving advice to congressional Republicans, what would you tell them to do in the wake of this speech?
The president did talk about tax reform, and I'll tell you what, our tax code is the most corrupt I think it's been in our history. A lot of that is due to George W. Bush and the old Republican Congress. Some of it's due to the antics the Democrats got up to between 2007 and 2011 when they ran the Congress. It is just, it's a horrible tax code. It's riddled with loopholes. It favors people who can afford the K Street lobbyists and can afford the fancy accountants. I would offer the president to sit down for real tax reform, just like Ronald Reagan and Tip O'Neill did in 1986, and get back to a tax code that makes sense, where everybody does have a stake in it, and that it's fair and flatter and uncorrupt. We've got to clear out these cobwebs.
Well, for those of you, unlike Stephen Green and Alexis Garcia, my colleagues, who didn't have time to read or watch the president's 7,000-word speech, here's a summary. My fellow Americans, I'm doing a great job. If you don't think I'm doing a great job, you're blocking progress. I'll just go around you. Wait for applause. I'm just like Abraham Lincoln, who didn't cry over spilt milk. Wait for laughter. Even though I'm doing a great job, the country is a mess. Rich people messed it up. It's easy to fix. We'll do it with their money. Put a bill on my desk and I'll sign it in the morning. I bless you, and I bless the United States of America.